Hello everyone, this is Reaper here, and today I'll be walking you through Lost Halls with a very detailed guide. Now this guide is going to be extremely long, so feel free to watch it in multiple sessions if needed. This video will also be time-stamped for all the sections that is needed, so feel free to watch only the section that you need information about, but hey, who knows, maybe you will find out something that you haven't found out before in the other sections as well, so feel free to check it all out. First off, when you enter Lost Halls, if you're doing it with a public group, you should already make up your mind whether you want to do a cult or if you want to do a void. And if you're joining a Discord raid, it should already show which one they're trying to go for, whether it's a cult or a void. The reason why you want to know that is because the path for the Cultist Hideout and NPC, which is the main boss, is quite different from each other. But map reading is a very different study, and it honestly takes a lot of time and experience and effort to understand and know how it works. So I'm not going to be talking about it in this video, but if you want to learn how to map read, feel free to join our classroom Discord, where there is usually a lot of lessons being given out there to help you understand how map reading works. So first of all, let's talk about classes. If you have never done Lost Halls before, there's few classes that is probably gonna help you get through the dungeon for the first time easier than the others. And there are some classes who always shine more in the run compared to some other. For example, if you're a beginner to Lost Halls, I highly suggest you to bring either one of the three melees, them being Paladin, Knight, or a Warrior. Not only that they have a very huge impact on the run and the run's quality, but they're also some of the beefiest characters, and you can easily survive on them as long as you try to dodge a bit. You cannot go wrong by picking either of them because they're all very important for the run and they all serve a huge purpose. Take Paladin for example, where it can give damaging buff, healing buff, and also HP buff to everyone. It's a huge advantage in the run, and you're only gonna notice how important it is once you don't have it. And Paladin is fairly easy to max, so if you want to go for it, sure, why not? It's a great class. 9 out of 10. And then we have Knight. As the video goes on and you watch more, you will realize how there's a lot of things in this dungeon that can be stunned, that can make the run a lot easier. From stunning leaders, to towers in NPC, to minions in Void, to every single thing in the cult besides the demons themselves. 9 shines really highly in the Lost Halls, and it's also an extremely tanky character, so you can never go wrong with it. And then we have the Warrior, which is one of the classes that has some of the most consistent high damage that you can output there, while also maintaining tankiness and also having a speed buff that can make it really easy to get out of a lot of tough situations. And it's extremely useful, especially in the Void, because there are some times where you need to run around across the platforms, and having a speedy buff will make that just much easier. Now, if you're still not comfortable with playing with a sword range in Lost Halls, that's completely understandable. There are always other options. For example, take Samurai as an example. It has higher range, it still has good damage, and it also offers Expose, which increases the DPS by a massive amount, especially since a lot of mobs in this dungeon has a lot of defense. And also, keep in mind, Void can only be debuffed by Expose, so it gives us even a bigger advantage compared to the other classes when it comes to Void. If you're still not feeling the small range, then you can always go to dagger classes and staff classes. And between those classes, the Trickster and the Wizard shines the most, because Wizard has one of the highest consistent DPS while maintaining a massive range from the mobs, and the Trickster not only has a high amount of damage, but also offers decoys, which can serve a lot in this dungeon, which I'll be making another video on in the close future about how to play Trickster in a Lost Hall, because there is so much you can do with it that I cannot finish it with 1 or 2 things. And if you're somebody who is having a bad pet and still want to survive through the halls, I highly recommend you then playing on a class like a Necromancer or a priest, where you can heal yourself and your team members as well. Any class can really be playable in the Lost Halls as long as you have the knowledge and know how to play with them. Just know that if you're new to Lost Halls, those classes that I mentioned will definitely make your life a lot easier. Now, each time you enter a room, you will be seeing two kinds of mobs in it. There are the leaders, and there are also the minions of the leaders. Now, there's a very important reason why you should recognize them for their own respective roles. It's because the amount of debuffs that apply to one is completely different from the other one in most of the debuffs. For example, the leaders can be stunned, but can't be paralyzed nor stasised. But the minions of the room can be paralyzed and can be stasised as well, but they cannot be stunned. And of course, we won't forget that we have Spooky Boy, but he is a completely different case, which I'll be talking about very soon. First off, we will start with the golem rooms, which consists of the big boy, the angry boy, the sad boy, and the fear boy. The big boy being the main one will always start from the middle. First, he has three phases. First phase, he will stand in the middle. He will be following players around the room by trying to shotgun them. He is not gonna jump on you, unlike the last phase. He will just follow you and try to shotgun you, but it's easily avoidable. And use the 3 shotgun, and it will follow the players around the room. It can be trickster decoyed, and it can also be stunned, so as long as you have one of those two, you'll be fine. Second phase, he goes back to the middle, and he shoots 3 shots in also a targeted direction, so as long as you have a stun or a decoy, you should also be fine for the whole duration. Third phase, he will glow red once again, and he's going to turn invulnerable once more. He's gonna start jumping on players. In this phase, you have to be very careful. Even if he's stunned, make sure to not stay close to him, because all what it takes is one jump to delete your character. The big boy also has possibly the highest defense in the game. It has a whopping 1000 defense. So anything that pierces armor when you shoot will be a very big help when you're killing the big boy. If you already have an Augmer or a Pogmer, which is going to be the biggest sub that you can get for golem rooms, it's going to make it quite fast. If not, the big boy itself has a mechanism where he armor breaks himself for 1 second every 5 seconds. So you have a good window of pushing him in, as long as you have the window and the place to shoot him. Next off, we have the 3 other minions, and in each golem room there's 3 of each of the minions. First, we will talk about the angry boy, which has 2 shot patterns, where first of them will be a targeted shot, where he's gonna shoot at the closest target to him. He's gonna shoot a barrage of shots, one line, each of them doing 85 armor piercing damage, so make sure you don't stand still or it's gonna be an easy death. Second is a shotgun he does around him at all times, every few seconds. Now this is especially dangerous because the angry boy itself stands still at its position while shooting shots, so the shotgun itself is not going to be a problem at the beginning. But if a player or a decoy gets within around 4 to 5 squares close to him, he's going to glow red and he's going to start getting aggressive and jumping into the player. That is where the shotgun really gets into the play and can easily one-shot you. And it's also one of the main killers during full skips. If you haven't watched out for one of them, he will eventually get you. Next, we have the sad boys, which have 2 types of shots as well. First of them being like a staff-like shot where it zigzags, and the second of it being a shotgun again. Now, keep in mind, both of these shots will do a lot of damage. The normal shot's doing around 135 damage, and the shotgun damage, the spikes, each of them doing around 155 damage each. Now this one is a little bit different from the angry boy. This one also stays at position and shoots, but if a player or a decoy gets close to him, he always tries to run away and maintain around 4 to 5 squares from the players or the decoys. So don't be afraid of him sitting on you or trying to jump on you. He's not gonna do it unless if you want to do it, then that's on you. And then we have the Fear Boy. Now this one in particular is probably one of the main reasons why a lot of people die in golem rooms, because this mob shoots radio-like shots that has petrify in it. It's the big shots, the thick ones. If they hit you, they petrify you for 1 solid second, which in golem rooms, and not even in golem rooms, even when you're full skipping and you have things behind you, it can be really deadly if you're not careful. So make sure, if you're in a golem room, you make it your priority to dodge those fear shots, because they can be the end of you. Next of the rooms, we have the slime room, which consists of the big slime, which is the main one, mini slimes, rats, and bats. The big slime is the one at the middle that always stays at the middle, shoots the 3-way clockwise shotguns that'll do a lot of damage if you stand in it. The big slime also has 3 faces. Each time he loses 1 out of 3 of his HP, he's gonna become invulnerable for like a second. The first 2 times he gets through a face, he summons a bunch of mobs, which includes all the 3 of the mobs, aka slimes, bats, and rats. The 3rd time, you make him go through his face, which is the last one. He doesn't spawn any mobs. Instead, he's gonna do small circles around where he is, and that sometimes can lead to the slime getting dragged even to a hallway. Especially when you're doing a full skip, you might see that like once or twice per your lifetime. The rats and the bats, however, have stationary shots, as you can see. The bats have the blue shots that will pet stasis, and the rats have the white shots that will quiet you. As long as you don't walk over them, you should be perfectly fine. Though, however, be careful to try to avoid walking on those at all times, because if they are rendered on your screen and they have been paralyzed, their shots will stack very easily, which can result in an easy one-shot if you're not careful enough. You can also know how stacked the shots are based on the shade below the shots. As for the mini slimes, as long as you don't stand still, they're not going to be a big threat. So just move around and you'll be fine. Next, we have Crusades, which contains Crusade Commander, Soldier, Explorer, and Shipwright. The Commander being the leader of them means that he is stunnable, but not paralyzed. So the best course of action is always to drag him back to where you came from and stun and slow him all the way. The Crusade Commander will also go through 3 phases as you deal damage to him. First, he will shoot faster. Second, he will respawn minions. And the 3rd time, he's gonna have double the shots that he has, and he's gonna do a lot of damage if he's not stunned. So even if he's stunned, always pay attention and make sure you don't stay close to him for any unnecessary death or nexus. The minions, however, on the other hand, cannot be stunned, so always pay close attention to that. But they can be killed, however, and they will always follow the commander as long as the commander is alive. Once the commander is dead, the explorers, which is the ones that armor break you, will stand still, but the soldiers and the shipwrights will still follow you. So you have to pay a close attention to that, or you might get ripped off by them, because 2 shotguns from soldiers when your armor broken means you're dead. One thing to really pay attention to is that when you're clearing crusades, you need to watch the minimap, because most of the time, a lot of people will peek splits, and it will result in crusade being dragged, like in this clip you can see.
Left after this. Crew from down, crew from down, crew from down, crew from down, crew from down. Crew from left, crew from left, crew from behind! Crew everywhere!
And that is why you should never peek any splits. Let the RL peek, otherwise it might end in unnecessary drags, which will result in either death, nexus, or a big potential of a failed run. So remember, kiddos, no peeking. And last but not least, we have the Oryx room, which also consists of 4 mobs, with the spawner being the main one. Then we have the outers, the inners, and Satan's favorite creature of all time, the Mario. Now the spawner itself stands in the middle of the room at all times at the beginning and shoots a shotgun wave of shots that do 200 damage each. After all the minions are cleared out, excluding the Mario, he's gonna start following the closest player and using a 3-shot shotgun that will do a 600 damage in total, so make sure you don't get hit by that. But keep in mind, it's a main mob, so it can be stunned. So knights in there or trickster decoys can be very helpful. Other than that, there is outers and inners that are the second issue here. The outers have a good amount of defense, being 60 defense at all times thanks to the armor buff that they have, and they will do a lot of damage. Now, one thing that outers and the inners have really in common is that once they lose 25% of their HP, or 1 out of 4 of their HP, they're gonna flash red and they're gonna start following the closest person to them, and they're gonna try to kill it, or until they die. One of the two. And then we have the Mario, which can be anywhere in the room of the Oryx room. It has 2 shots, One of them being a purple shot that confuses, the second one being a yellow shot that pierces through players doing a high amount of damage. The Mario behavior is a little bit weird because for a few seconds it will try to stay away for like 7, 6, 8 tiles away from the players, and for the next few seconds after that it will try to jump on any player that he sees close by. And he will be repeating that process, but fear not, it's paralyzable. So as long as you can paralyze it or slow it down, or even with a pet, it's easily manageable. Just make sure he doesn't run between your group killing everyone. Now, one thing that you can do to make the Oryx rooms a lot easier is either bringing a Mystic with an Aether Orb, which is the best thing that you can have for an Oryx room because it's going to paralyze everything. It's going to make it easier for you to dodge, to hit, and to kill. Or having a Trickster so that when the outers and the inners enrage, they're going to go on the decoy, not on you. And that makes the room a lot less obnoxious. Now there is one special enemy that we haven't talked about yet, which is obviously the Spooky Boy. The Spooky Boy is by far one of the most unique enemies in the game, because it's an enemy that you cannot hit and you cannot shoot. It will be following you all around once it starts aggroing on someone, and it'll be teleporting up to 3 times every 15 seconds. So his lifespan is basically 3 teleports and 5 shotguns afterwards, or in short, his lifespan is 50 seconds approximately. Now the Spooky Boy has 3 types of shots, one of them being a pet stasis, slow, and a bleeding. The bleeding and the pet stasis will each do 150 armor piercing damage that'll also pierce through players as well. The green one, which is the slow one, will be hitting you for 125 damage and also has the same effect of piercing you and the other players as well. Now the best course of action that you can take to deal with the Spooky is by a Trickster decoy, because it will be treating players and decoys as the same as any other mob does, obviously. It will be just circling the decoy, but make sure when you see a Spooky decoy, don't get close to it, because Spooky does not sit on players, but it will circle around them. So if you try to get close to the Spooky just to play around with it, he's gonna start following you, and most probably he'll kill you. Another way to deal with the Spooky is that if you know how he shoots and you've seen it dealt with him once or twice or a few times, you should memorize his shot patterns. There is always a gap between his shots, so you can either rotate around the room he spawned from or any room that you came in before with the Spooky. As long as you dodge the shots, you'll be perfectly fine. Or you can just drag him back through the rooms that he came from and just make a circle around it from where he came from to where the Spooky was at, and keep on doing that for around 50 seconds, or once again 3 teleports and then 5 seconds afterwards, and he will be dying after that. Now, a couple things you need to keep in mind. The Spooky teleport that he does every 15 seconds once he got aggroed, he can teleport over walls as well. As you can see in this clip, he was already activated on the left side. So because the player in the spawn was the closest to him, he decided to teleport to the spawn and try to kill him, and instead of just waiting in his room until he disappears. So keep in mind, once the Spooky has been called out in the chat, always keep an eye out on the minimap or between yourselves, because you never know, he might pop out before you even realize it. And if it ever happens that a Spooky Boy somehow gets dragged to a defender or to a crusade where you're trying to clear and you get sandwiched, never feel afraid to nexus, because it can be extremely difficult to deal with, but at the same time you would be surprised by how often this happens where a Spooky gets dragged to defender or into a crusade. So once again, always keep an eye out.
Tricksters behind, please. Tricksters behind. Keep everything that tries to come in out. Oh my god, there's no 3 crusades in MBD. What the fuck is it? What's going on? Oh my fucking god, I spoke to...
So let's talk about the Cultist Hideout. And to go to the Cultist Hideout, first you have to find the Agonized Titan in the Lost Hall and find his 3 flames. And there's an easy way to do that. Whenever you enter a Lost Hall dungeon, from 95 to 98% of the time, the map will have 7 dead ends. 5 of them being a pod room, 1 of them being the Agonized Titan, and the other one will be the Marble Defender. Now your point is, when you're doing a cult run, is to find the pod rooms and the Agonized Titan. Every time you enter a pod room, you will have 5 to 10 pots in the room that you will be destroying. And out of those pots, only 1 of them will have a flame that will slowly distinguish. If you find the pot that has that one, which you will find out by killing it, that means congratulations, you found the flame. Now you need 3 flames in total like that. Whenever that pot is killed, the flame will slowly distinguish, and then it will teleport to the Agonized Titan on the map, which then you can find out where he is. Now after you find all the 3 distinguishable flames from 3 different pot rooms, the Agonized Titan will type I ... in the chat. That means all the 3 flames have been found, and he's going to be activating in about 45 seconds in total. Once he's been activated in that 45 seconds, the 3 flames will disappear from the map. So if you're not at Tea Room by that time, make sure you remember where it is. Now, if you're already at the Tea Room, he will be saying, I will not allow you bring calamity into this world. That means he's fully activated right now, and he's going to start shooting. The way the Agonized Titan will shoot will be an 8-shot shotgun around him that is going to be rotating clockwise. Each one of the shots will be doing 300 damage, and it will be piercing through players. So make sure you don't tank it, or it's going to make a quick war of your character. And the Agonized Titan can also be dazed, so if you have a trickster with brain, you can use the brain once every 2 seconds and it's going to be permanently dazing him, or an archer with Quiver of the Thunder. Now what can help Agonized Titan easily kill your characters if you're not paying attention is the debuff shots that he shoots as well. He has 7 different debuff shots, and he will be shooting them completely randomly. But there is only one that can be really threatening, which is the yellow one, aka the Paralyze. Now the debuffing shots, including the Paralyze, themselves will not be doing damage, but each one of them will be debuffing you for 3 precise seconds. And that is where the problem starts, because if you get slowed or paralyzed by those debuff shots and you start running into the Agonized Titan Grey shots, which each does 300 damage, it can be very deadly, so pay attention to that. Once the Agonized Titan reaches about 1 out of 3 of his HP, he's gonna start spawning 3 pink flames, which will each petrify you for 1 second if they hit you. Now that's also gonna make your job to dodge the Grey shots even harder, but they're killable and they can die quite easily, and they also have a long cooldown between their respawns. So if they spawn, make sure you take care of them fast, and then you go back to the Agonized Titan. Once the Agonized Titan dies, congratulations, you made it into the Cultist Hideout. That's where the cult really begins. Now once you enter, you're gonna have to travel through another map until you reach the bosses, which will be containing minions, aka followers of the cultists. And there's multiple colors and kinds of them. Now when it comes to map reading in cult, there's only one rule that you need to know. When there's 2 splits, there is always a split with a beam on top of it, and a split that doesn't have a beam on top of it. If you want to go through the right path, you always take the split that doesn't have the beam on top of it. Otherwise it's just gonna be a dead end right away. In total, there is 7 followers and 3 demons. Now, you might be wondering and asking yourself, why is there 7 followers but only 5 cultists? Well, yeah, shit happens. Now, each of the colors of the mobs will indicate what kind of debuff also they have and how do they shoot. For example, the red ones will be shooting a massive shotgun of red shots that will armor break you and each do 100 damage after you have armor broken, or if you have 0 defense, which I don't know why would you have one, but just so you know. Then we have the blue one that throws icicles, and it will slow you down and also do a massive amount of damage. There is the yellow one that shoots paralyzed shots, which is not dangerous alone, but when combined with the other ones, can be very deadly. There is the purple one that shoots a shotgun around them of unstable shots. If they just hit you one, it's not gonna be doing a lot, but if he sits on you, yeah, that's the end of you, buddy. Then we have the green one who shoots shotguns of green shots as well, each of them sickening for 3 seconds and also each doing 90 damage. So make sure you watch out for it because yeah, that's a lot of damage. Then we have the white one that shoots 4 shots. The shots will be all around him, but mainly the direction of the shots will depend on who's the closest target to him. Those shots will each quiet you for 3 seconds, so make sure you dodge it at all costs because no matter what you are, quiet is bad. And then last but not least, we have the black one, which is the unique one between them. The black one is always wandering around alone, where the other colors are usually either 3 or 4 of them always together. But this follower is a unique one compared with other ones because this one spawns 3 mini demons once it sees you. One of them being red, which armor breaks, the other one being blue, that slows, and the last one being a yellow, that paralyzes. Now, as long as you don't let those demons sit on you, they're not gonna be deadly, and you should be fine. The follower himself, however, shoots a massive shotgun around him of very slow traveling shots that each darkness you for 3 seconds and also dealing a massive amount of damage. So once again, don't let them sit on you. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that all of these mobs are all paralyzable, stunnable, and also slowable. Also staceable, but you don't really need to stasis them. So they're really easy to clear as long as you have the proper debuffs for them. And even if you don't, they're not that tanky, trust me, they die fairly quickly. If you make it through the minions, which shouldn't be a hard task to be honest, you will be able to meet the 5 cultists, which each of them has a certain debuff, just like the mobs, with the red shooting armor break shots, yellow shooting paralyzed shots, white shooting quiet shots, purple shooting unstable shots, and blue shooting slow shots. Now, once you reach this place, you will have to go through 7 phases until you can kill the Malice. 1 shotgun, 1-headed demon, 3 shotguns, 3-headed demon, 5 shotguns, Malice having a feast, shape shotguns, and then 1 final 5 shotgun. Now, to activate the boss themselves, once you're in the room, you need to step on the pentagram in the middle, and then they will start speaking. And after that, the first phase will start. Each of them will be shooting 1 shotgun from their original place, and then randomly teleporting around until you kill them, and they go back to their place. To make the fight easier, remember, all the 5 cultists can be stunned throughout phase 1, phase 3, and phase 5. Or you can remember them as the phases that they shoot 1 shotgun, 3 shotgun, and 5 shotgun. In all of those 3 phases, they can be stunned. Now, you can tell if they are still gonna teleport around and shoot, or if they're gonna go back to their original spot and wait for the next phase by looking at the dot on their place. If there is still a black dot, that means they're still alive and they're gonna run around and shoot. If everything disappears, however, and you just see his debuffs, that means you can move on to the next one because they will go back to their original spot and wait for the next phase. After you push all of them back to their original spot, then the second phase will kick in, which they will spawn a 1-headed demon. Now, this demon has multiple phases, and only the first phase is guaranteed to be the same every time. After that, he has 2 to 3 different phases. The first phase, where he stands in the middle, is just him shooting the closest person to him, shooting some flames around randomly as well, and also shooting shotguns around him. Now, here you need to make sure that you don't stand on the flames because they will be doing continuous damage and they'll also armor break you. As the shots that he shoots to the closest players, yeah, you shouldn't take that either. But the boss can be decoyed easily, and if you have tricksters, it should be easy to deal with. If you deal enough damage to him, you can always kill him the first phase. However, if you don't kill him the first phase, pay attention to his next phases because they can be even more deadly. Now there are 3 other phases that he can do. One of them being circling around the pentagram in the middle and shooting shotguns around him and to the closest players as well. And he will also leave flames behind where he was every now and then. Another phase that he can do is from the middle, he will just jump and charge on the closest player to him and start shooting shotguns and start chasing that target. Or another phase that he can do, he will be spawning 3 mini demons, which can be easily dealt with if you shoot it fast enough because they're not tanky. Now, after you deal with the one-headed demon and after he dies, the 5 cultists will appear again and the third phase will start. And now each of them will be shooting 3 shotguns instead of 1. It's exactly like the first phase, just instead of 1 shotgun, they will have 3. After you push them back to their spawn points, then you'll proceed to phase 4, where they spawn a 3-headed demon at the very middle. Now at the beginning, the demon will only be shooting boomerang shots that'll darkness any player that gets hit by them, but it doesn't pierce through, so hey, you might get lucky, and the other people might tank it for you. After that 3-headed demon is dead, he's gonna get separated into 3 different demons. The red one, the green one, and the blue one. The red one being the Minotaur will be following people around and shooting pepperoni shots, that's big red shots, and they will be doing a massive amount of damage. So make sure to not stop moving around and always slowing them down. That's the best way to survive them. The blue one will also be doing the same by chasing players around and shooting shotguns at them. Both of them are equally dangerous, so make sure to keep an eye out. However, for the blue one, he will be standing at the middle and only shoot the same boomerang shots that he shot at the beginning, which only darkness plays, so you can always skip that demon for the very last after you dealt with the other 2. Now after that 3-headed demons are dead, you'll proceed to phase number 5, which each of the cultists once again they appear, but this time instead of 1 or 3 they will be shooting 5 shotguns each. After that, once you push them back to their original spawns, Malice, which is the red one, will take the lead. He will go to the middle of the pentagram and he will be having a feast on his friends, consuming them, and also you will be getting the fame from them at that time. Now, keep in mind, you will only get the total fame of every one of them if you get the soul band damage on each one of them, with red being an exception because he doesn't die at that moment. Now, once he consumes his friends, he will have their powers as well because, yeah, he consumed them. And then there will be 4 red circles on the left, on the right, on the top, and the bottom of the room. Those red circles will be spawns for the followers of the 5 cultists, which means the black one and the green one will not be included between them, but the other 5 will be spawning every now and then. So make sure to pay attention to that because they can be extremely dangerous, and make sure they are your priority to clear out first before the boss. After Malice consumes his friends, there is a good way to know what kind of shots he will be shooting, and that's by looking at his eyes. But at the beginning, it's not going to be deadly at all. As long as you keep on moving around, or as long as you have a decoy, it should be easy to deal with. After you DPS him enough, he will go to the shotgun phase, which he will be shooting the same exact shotguns that they have been firing since the beginning. Now this can be extremely deadly if you're not careful, because those 4 minions that spawn around the room can make it a very difficult job for you to dodge, especially if they slow, paralyze, or armor break you. It can be extremely dangerous, so always keep an eye out. Now once you DPS him enough and push him to the final phase, he will go to the middle, and then he will shoot 5 shotguns in the middle. At that time he's invulnerable and he's not going to take damage, so you're going to have to wait until he finishes his 5 shotguns. Now the order for those shotguns are always the same, starting from red, into purple, into yellow, into blue, into the white. And after he shoots the white shotgun, he can go in, and most of the time that's where he dies. And if you don't end up doing enough damage to kill him, he will be repeating that same process for that last 5 shotguns, and then you can kill him after that. Now there's a big reason why cults are very important. Besides the fact that it gives exalt, it also drops only 1, but a guaranteed 1 vial to a player in the run. Now that vial is necessary because you need it to open the portal to the void, which I'll be talking about very soon. Now that we're done with cult, let's talk about void and how to get there. Now, before you do the void, you need to find the marble Colossus, or known as MBC. And to kill NPC, first you need to find the Marble Defender, or known as MBD. Now finding MBD is also gonna be another job to do, because you're gonna have to go through 9 rooms from your spawn, with the loop counting as 1 room. Now MBD itself is a mini boss that's mainly created to fend off the people who wants to rush out of the group and activate the boss before the others, which in this way they can't, and they have to destroy the MBD first. But if they're in a big group, they can't do that without taking way too long, so rest assured, they will have to wait for you. Now the Marble Defender can be extremely dangerous if you're not careful. Once the defender has been found, you need to get a little bit close to it, and then he's gonna start speaking, which indicates that he has been activated. Now the Marble Defender will be shooting a lot of shots in the first phase that you encounter him, which are gonna have one small gap between them that you're gonna have to follow. And that gap will always start from the left of MBD. So if you're screen rotating, you can just rotate to him and you will know where that is. If not, you have to check the minimap and decide based on that. For example, if MBD is on the right side of the room, that means the top side is where the gap is gonna start from. Or if the MBD is at the bottom side of the room, the right side will be where the gaps are gonna start coming from, and so on and so on. Now the shots themselves will be extremely dangerous, because each of one of the shots will be doing 150 armor piercing damage that will also pierce through players, and they will all silence you as well. So make sure you then get lined up by them. Now you're gonna have to follow that gap and continue DPSing him up until he reaches around 60% of his HP. That's where the second phase starts. He's gonna say something which indicate that the second phase has started. In this phase, he's gonna shoot lines of shots, which will always have either 1 or 2 gaps between them that he can use to dodge. You're gonna continue DPSing him in that phase as well until he gets close to that, where he speaks one more time. Once he speaks that one last time, there's gonna be 2 more statues that are gonna be activated at the entrance of the hallway from the upside and downside that will also shoot, which in this time it's the best decision to get close to the defender, because that's one of the safest spots to him. If you are already with a raid that has decent enough damage, on the last phase you can always sit directly on top of defender. That's one of the safest places that he can be at. Now once the defender is dead, it's gonna open a hallway behind him, leading all the way to MBC. Once you activate the MBC, he will be lighting up for a few seconds. At those few seconds, you want to go to the top side of the MBC. That's where you want to do majority of your fight. Now once the MBC starts shooting, you will notice 4 red dots on the minimap on each corner of the room. Those dots will be pillars or towers, however you want to call them by, that are going to be spawned by the MBC. And they have few rules. For example, those towers have 9 colors in total. 7 of them will only spawn before survival phase, and 2 of them will only spawn after survival phase. Now you can also notice on the pillars or the towers, on top of them, that they have 4 eyes. Those eye colors will differ from tower to tower, which indicates what kind of shots will they do and what kind of debuff will those shots do. The green one will be a slow one, the blue one will be a pit stasis, the purple one will be armor piercing, the red one will curse, the white one will weaken, the orange one will daze, and the gray-white one will make you bleed. Now between those shots, the green one will be the most dangerous one for you. Not because it does the most damage, but it will make you take the most damage. Because of how slow it will make you, there is way too many shots in the NPC fight, so make sure to prioritize dodging the green shots above any other shot while you're doing NPC. The next kind of shot that you want to be careful of is the curse shot, which is the red one, which will increase any damage you take by 1.25 times, so be careful. That curse with some of the NPC sets can be really lethal. But besides that, you have the bleeding shot that can also do a lot of damage over time, which is annoying. There is the armor piercing shot. It will do less base damage than the other shots, which is around 125, but it will armor pierce. The other shots will be doing around 100 damage to 150 damage based on the color of the shot. Now the other shots are not really that dangerous, but 2 of them, like the white one and the orange one, will be a DPS killer. The white one being a weaken and the orange one being dazed. Now, if you're ever in a scenario where you have to choose between which shots to dodge and which ones to tank if you have to, always try to dodge the slow. And if you have to tank, always tank the white and the orange one. Make sure that's your priority. Because the blue one being a pit stasis one can be also dangerous, since if you have a good pit and have it disabled for a few seconds, can really affect your healing. Even though within combat system, it doesn't make that much of a difference, but it's still a lot. So make sure you dodge those as well. And I will talk about the other two towers after we speak about the NBC. Now, those towers will always respawn 35 seconds, despite what happens to them, because you will either kill them or they will despawn in 30 seconds. Now, each time the towers spawn, they will be invulnerable for a couple seconds, and then they're gonna start shooting and they're gonna be damageable as well. So be very careful of that. So if you end up killing them, then they're gonna respawn after 35 seconds. If not, they're gonna despawn in 30 seconds and then respawn 5 seconds after, which once again brings us back to the 35 seconds. Now, when the NBC starts shooting at the beginning, he will be shooting 15 shots around him that will vibrate and boomerang as well. Now, to do the first phase, if you're with a group, it's quite easy because those shots will be stunning for 2 seconds and they'll also do 200 damage, but they cannot pierce through players. So usually one person will be tanking 1 or 2 shots, and then it will go on to the next phase because you can push him quite fast in that phase. Now, the next phase after that, when he's gonna start chasing a player or a decoy, and he will be shooting a 4-way shotgun. Each one of the shotguns will have 5 shots in them that will do 100 damage of armor piercing shots that pierce through players as well. So having a decoy in here can be extremely useful because tanking those shots are not gonna feel pleasant at all. Now, once you DPS him enough, he's gonna get pushed back to the middle and he's gonna be armored. Starting from that phase, he's gonna start spawning pop rocks, which is rocks that don't have any eyes on them. They're just rocks that are gonna spawn out of the NBC. They're gonna follow the closest player to them and then explode on them, or after a while they're gonna explode. Now, those pop rocks, once they explode, they will be flashing red for 1 second, and then they're gonna shoot 8 shots from where they explode. Now, you really want to dodge those shots because it's not gonna be nice for your HP bar, just saying. Now, having that pop rock exploding on you while you're cursed is almost a guaranteed death, so make sure you watch out for the combination of those two. While he's spawning those pop rocks at the middle, he will be also shooting shotguns side by side. He's gonna start shooting one shotgun to the right, to the bottom, to the left, and to the up. Once you deal enough DPS to him, he's gonna stop shooting those shotguns. He's gonna start shooting out tentacles. It will be gray shots and there will be a lot of it. Those tentacles that he's gonna spawn are gonna be rotating around the room clockwise, but it's gonna be extremely slow, so it's quite easy to dodge. Each one of those gray shots will do 300 damage, so make sure you don't stand close to them, because at that phase, the NBC will also be shooting out thunders that will paralyze you if you get hit by them. Now, the paralyzed duration is quite short, but if he paralyzes you right next to a tentacle, most chances are you're gonna tank 2-3 shots with a tentacle and you're gonna die, so make sure never to stand close to a tentacle that's coming towards you. Once you deal enough DPS to him in that phase, he's gonna start rotating around the room counterclockwise. Now, as soon as he starts rotating, he's gonna be also shooting big purple star-looking shots that are gonna spin around. Those shots will be confusing you, and they'll also be doing a big amount of damage. Now, the problem with the confuse is that if the tentacles are still there and you get confused into them, it can mean a very quick death, so make sure you're careful for that. But after that, it's quite easy to push the boss back to the middle. Once he goes back to the middle, and he's gonna shoot a 4-way wheel shot that are gonna rotate clockwise as well, which are extremely slow, but they will do a lot of damage, so make sure you don't tank those. After you deal enough damage to him, he's gonna spawn 1 golden rock, which we call by the key. Now, whenever a key spawns, NBC is gonna be invulnerable, so you want to take care of that key as quick as you can. Now, the first key that he will spawn, it will be rotating counterclockwise and coming out from the right side of him, which means the key is gonna go right, to the top left, and then it's gonna rotate around the room like that. Now, most of the time, you're gonna manage to kill the key until it reaches top left. If you somehow couldn't kill it, then it's fine. You can always go back to the top right side of the room and kill the key there once it comes back. Now, once the key is dead, few things will happen. You will start seeing rocks with eyes on them as well, just like how you saw it on the pillars. Now those rocks, as the same as the pillars, they have different colors, which indicates a different kind of shots that they will have as well. Now, because those rocks will only spawn before survival, they will have the same 7 colors of those towers that only spawn before survival as well, which is the 7 of those that we mentioned before. Now, the first time they spawn, they will only rotate near the middle where the NPC usually stands, and they will be shooting shots all around the room. Now, once that key is dead, the first key, those rocks will spawn, and the NPC is gonna start charging towards the closest player that he sees, shooting a paralyzed circle around him, which is gonna be big yellow wheels that will do a lot of damage and also paralyze you for 1.2 seconds. But the shots are extremely slow and you can easily dodge them. At the same time, he will be shooting a 3-shot shotgun of black arrows that will each do 170 damage, but it will not pierce through your armor nor players, so it's quite easy to tank, but it will unstable you, so try to dodge them if you can. Usually in this phase you want either a melee or a decoy to tank it near the top right wall. That's where you want to pull the boss to most of the time. Once you deal enough damage to him, you're going to be pushing him around 2 to 3 times each time he is going to say something, and after that he's going to go back to the middle and he's going to start rotating again. He will be rotating counterclockwise, so at this point you want to go to the bottom side of the room and wait for the boss there. Once the boss comes back to you at the bottom side of the room, you want to follow it around, so you're going to go from bottom to the right wall to the top wall. Now as soon as you push the boss, he's going to turn blue and spawn 2 golden keys. Each of them are going to rotate the exactly opposite of each other. One of them is going to rotate clockwise and one of them is going to rotate counterclockwise. Now you want to follow the key that rotates exactly like the boss, which is the counterclockwise key. The boss himself will go back to the middle, but at this point the colored pop rocks from the middle will start rotating around the room and changing their colors every now and then. So make sure you watch out for them, especially when they come together, because just like the golden keys, the colored pop rocks will also be rotating counterclockwise of each other. So there's some certain points where they always meet up with each other. So pay a close attention to that because it's going to be quite deadly. Whenever you see 2 pop rocks getting close to you, aka a drive-by, make sure you don't panic and you always use macro dodge accordingly. Now if you feel threatened or low HP at that time, never feel afraid to nexus, it's always better than dying. Now if you have been following the queue that came out from the boss and you didn't kill it all the way to top left, you want to stop at top left, wait for the other key, and then follow that other key to top right. And then you're gonna be following that other key to top right. If you don't kill it, you're gonna stop there. What you want to do there is always follow the key from top right to top left, and that key from top left to top right, until both of them are dead. Once both of those keys are dead, the boss in the middle is gonna shoot a 3-way tentacle gray shot, and he will also be having the drive-by rocks, aka the colored pop rocks, close by to him, rotating around him, doing status debuff shots as well. You need to get close to the middle and deal enough damage to him until he once again spawns 2 more keys. This time, one of the keys will be rotating around NPC himself, clockwise, and the other key will be rotating around the room, also clockwise. In this phase, the NPC itself will always, he will wait a couple seconds, and then he's gonna jump to the closest player / decoy to him, and he's gonna shoot out 3 yellow shotguns that's gonna zigzag through the room. Now those shotguns will instantly kill you if he has jumped on you. Now the best way to deal with that is if you are either human decoying him in the middle, which is extremely easy because you have a big window to get out of it once he jumps on you, or by a decoy, one of the 2. Now at the beginning, once he starts jumping, the first time he jumps and shoots the 3 shotguns, he will start shooting black arrow shotguns once again. Each time he jumps, he will be shooting 3 times shotguns of those black arrows, wait a couple seconds, and jump again to do another paralyzed shotgun. And it's extremely easy to get the hang of it. It might be scary at the beginning, but it's really easy to get the hang of it. Now, If he got paralyzed close to the boss, don't be afraid to Nexus, because if you're the closest player to him and you're paralyzed, good chances are he's gonna jump on you and he's gonna one-shot you, so don't be afraid to Nexus from that as well. Ideally, when the phase begins, you wanna DPS the key that rotates around the NPC until he jumps. And after he jumps, you can go to the left wall and meet the second key there and just follow it all the way around the room. Now at that time, somebody needs to take care of the NPC jumps in the middle. The rest of the people can always follow the key around the room. Now once both of the keys are dead, he's gonna do 3 more phases before he does survival phase. Now here's the thing. If you're with a group that has mediocre DPS, you always want to stand directly below NPC himself. If you're with a group that has extremely high DPS, and note when I say extremely high, I mean really high DPS, you can go to the bottom left to make it for a faster survival phase. But majority of the time, you're gonna end up at the bottom side. He's gonna go through 3 phases before he goes into the survival. The first phase he's gonna be shooting black arrows all around him, small ones, and every now and then he's gonna shoot 3 big ones as well. At the same time, there will be the confused fidget spin shots again that are gonna have the same shot pattern as a bulwark weapon once again. And he is also gonna be spawning pop rocks the whole time. So make sure you keep a big eye out for that. After you push him out of the black arrow phase, he's gonna start shooting silence pellets all around the room. And he's also gonna shoot the 3 black arrows he've been shooting the previous phase before, every now and then. And he will also continue in spawning the pop rocks as well. Once you do enough damage to him, you're gonna push him to the final phase before survival. In this phase, he's gonna be doing the silent shots, the black arrow shots that he does all the time as well, and he will have 2 colored pop rocks close to him, rotating around him, shooting debuff shots everywhere. Now every few seconds the color of those rocks will change, so be careful of different kind of debuff shots. But keep in mind, in this phase he's not going to be spawning pop rocks, so you don't have to be afraid of that. Once you deal enough damage to him, he's going to go into the survival phase, which is the hardest phase of the NPC. In this phase, he's going to spawn 3 golden keys that are going to rotate around the room. One of them being the inner, which is the closest one to the boss, the middle, which is between the inner and the outer, and then we also have the outer key, which is the closest one to the wall. Now, normally they have one specific rotation that they do, but because the game doesn't allow 2 entities to be on top of each other, sometimes that rotation will change, so it's not going to be always the same. Now, majority of the time, only the inner key will be affected by this. Majority of the time, not all the time. Usually, the outer key always comes first from the right side, then the inner key from left, and after that, the middle key from left. But keep one thing in mind when you have multiple keys at the same time. Make sure you guys are all focusing on the same key. And for that, it's best to listen to the raid leader, what he says. Or if you're not doing a run with a raid leader, always focus on the rock that comes first to you to make it easier for yourself. Now, there's few things that you need to know about this phase. First, is going to be spawning pop rocks all the time. So if you're a trickster, make sure you always decoy those pop rocks, and it can be a massive help. If you're a priest, you always spam your fungal tomes down. If you're a paladin and you have an MC, you always use it, because those are the main threats of the run. And make sure once again that you prioritize dodging the green shots that comes from the towers and the colored pop rocks, because if you get hit by a slow, it's very likely that you're gonna suffer a lot of damage. Which also brings me to my next point. When you're doing survival, never hug the wall. It's only gonna make it more dangerous for you to rotate with it, because the further away you are from the boss, the more distance you need to travel to get away from the tentacles. So it's always the best to stay around 2 to 3 tiles away from the wall while you're dodging the shots. Now keep in mind, he will be also shooting silence pallet shots all the time, so dodging those will also be very helpful for you. So remember what we talked about before about prioritizing tanking one shot over the other. It will vastly help you. And make the most out of micro dodging. It can be extremely useful. Now, once you kill all the 3 keys, then congratulations, you made it through the hard part. After that, all the tentacles will disappear, all of the colored pop rocks will also disappear, but the towers are going to keep on shooting. And at that time, the boss will stop shooting for a moment, and then shooting 9 paralyzed shotguns all around the room. Now that one is not dangerous unless if you get paralyzed from the very beginning. At that time, it's the best to stay close to the wall and then going with it. You want to go to the left side of the room and group up there, because that's where you want to do post-survival phase. After he shoots out those 9 paralyzed shotguns, he's gonna shoot out the same shotguns he was shooting at the very beginning, where he shoots out 1 piercing shotgun to the right, 1 to the bottom, 1 to the left, and 1 to the up. And then he's gonna do the black wheel rotating shots once again. And then after that, he's gonna stop shooting for a while. You can get close to him, and you will notice that he's slowly charging up his eyes one by one. That's where the post-survival phase really begins. Now, once all of his 4 lights are lit up, he's gonna start shooting again. And at that time, the 4 pillars are gonna change colors. That's where the yellow pillars and the purple pillars will come. Now, the yellow pillars will not have any status debuff shots on them, but they will do a lot of damage, so make sure you dodge them at all times. And the towers will remain yellow until the boss gets pushed twice, which I will talk about now. Now, once the towers turn purple, once again, they're not gonna have any debuff shots, but they will be doing even more damage. So it's at that time where the knights have to stun those towers at all times. If you don't have any knights, make sure you take care of the 2 towers close to you. Now, one thing to pay attention to is that while he's post-survival, remember the 35-second respawn time we talked about with the towers? And here, once it despawns, it's gonna respawn right away, which means the respawn time for the towers is gonna be 30 seconds, not 35, so pay attention to that. Now here, the boss will have 4 kinds of different faces and shot types. Them being the pancakes, the patty jumps, the spaghettis, and the wiggles. The nightmare face. And every time you push him through a phase, which will be 4 phases, one of his body parts will lit up. The first time, his legs will lit up, which will turn his pancakes into void arrows. Now the second time you push him through his threshold, his arms are gonna turn into purple. And for this one, he's gonna empower his wiggles and they're gonna turn purple. The first wiggle would paralyze you. These ones will petrify you. Now trust me, the petrify one is easier to deal with rather than the paralyze, because the paralyze lasts a lot longer than the petrify. And once he turns his arms to blue, which is the second one, all the towers are gonna turn purple, which I mentioned before, so pay attention to that. After you push him through a threshold again, his chest is gonna turn purple. This time, his spaghettis are gonna become void spaghettis. Now be careful, because those ones will hurt a lot more than regular ones. And once you push him to the last time, his eyes are gonna turn purple as well, and he's gonna be fully consumed by the void. This time, the patty jumps will turn into void blasters, which he will do exact the same, but instead of doing the paralyzed shots, he's gonna be doing shots that deal 200 armor piercing damage each, that will also darkness you. Now let's talk about the faces themselves. Let's talk about the pancakes first. Whenever he does the pancakes, he always goes back to the middle. The pancakes themselves will not do a lot of damage, but they will be paralyzing you, but not for too long, so it's quite easy to deal with. The empowered version of the pancakes is the void arrows. These will do a lot of damage, and they will also silence you, but there is a very massive amount of gap between them, so you can, even as a melee, consistently DPSing the boss without getting hit by a single arrow if you can dodge properly enough. The second shot type that we'll talk about is the patty jumps. The patty jumps is going to be the same one where he did it on the 2 key phase. He will be waiting a few seconds, jumping on a person, waiting another 1 or 2 seconds, and then shooting out 3 shotguns. Now, here's one thing that a lot of players don't notice. The 3 shotguns don't all have the same effect. The first shotgun will paralyze, the second one will confuse you, and the third one will paralyze as well. Now note that the confused from the second one will last longer than the paralyzed from the third one, so keep an eye out for that, since I died to that multiple times. So don't be the same as me. When he turns into the void shotguns, which is the empowered version of the parry jumps, he's going to be doing the exactly same kind of jumps, but the shots are straightforward. They will just completely destroy you if you stay close to the boss. The third kind of shots, which is the spaghettis, those shots will be paralyzing you, but they will not be doing a lot of damage. So if they're normal spaghettis, don't be afraid of them, especially if you have an M seal, though it can be easily decoyed and easily manageable. Now the void version of them, however, will also paralyze, so never tank the spaghetti shots ever, because they will be doing a shit ton of damage. Now for the last one, which is the wiggles, it will be a very slow traveling shot that will paralyze you for 1.2 seconds if you get hit by it. Now the empowered version of the wiggles is going to be the petrify wiggle, which has an extremely quick traveling shot speed, but they will be petrifying you for 0.6 seconds, so basically the half of duration of the paralyze. Now you see why the petrify wiggle is a lot better than the normal wiggle. Here's few more things that you should also know about the faces. For example, he will not be doing the exact same face twice in a row unless if he gets pushed to another different color. For example, if he colors up in a place. But if he does get pushed to color a part of his body, then he can do the same kind of face again. Now, each time you push him, you will be interrupting the kind of face that he does right now and jump to a new one. Whether it be the same one or a different one, that's a different case. Now, if you made it out through all that and you pushed him one more time, he's gonna go back to the middle and he's gonna start blinking. And the ground under him will turn purple slowly. That means you killed the boss. Congratulations, you made it. But don't stand close to the middle, because he will be self-destructing himself and he will be shooting a massive amount of shotgun, which is very slow and trouble. So just stay close to the wall, not on the wall though. Stay close to the wall. If you stay on the wall, you're gonna miss out on the fame, and you don't want that to happen. Trust me, it gives a lot of fame. Once the NPC dies, he's gonna leave behind him a very massive crack on the ground, which is very purple, just like the void. And that's where you can use the Vial of the Darkness that we got from the cult. Now one player will be able to pop the vial, and at the top left it will say who popped it, and then it will open the portal to the void, and that's where the void starts. Let's talk about the void now. Once you enter the void, you will be spawning in a circle room surrounded by pure evil, and that pure evil will do 75 damage to you each time you touch it, piercing through your armor and everything, just like lava, but stronger. Now, as soon as somebody enters the dungeon, 25 seconds after that, the void himself will spawn at the north side or the top side of the platform. Once he spawns, he will just stand there for another 10 seconds. In that 10 seconds, he will be invulnerable, and near the end, he will be HP scaling as well. Few seconds after he HP scales, or let's say 10 seconds after he spawned, he will start running around the platform all the time and shooting different waves of shots. Now, as soon as he starts rotating and shooting around 80 seconds each time, he will shrink the circle on the map, aka the platform that you're standing on, by one tile from the outer side. Now he will be doing that until you push him to all now ends, which is a phase I'll talk about soon. Now, if you don't push him fast enough, he is gonna eat up to 5 platforms. If he shrinks for the 6th time, the whole platform will disappear and you're forced to Nexus. But that's basically a situation you will probably never encounter in your whole life. And that is the thing that makes the void the hardest, because you have to race against the time. Now, usually in runs, most of the time you're gonna end up with 1 or 2 shrinks, which is completely normal. So if it happens, don't panic and don't worry about it and just move on. Now the void himself, while he's rotating around the room, he has around 22 different types of shooting. Now I'm not gonna be talking about all the ways that he's gonna shoot. Instead, I'll tell you about all the kinds of shots that he will shoot, because Each shot can have a different status effect from another one, but throughout the whole fight and throughout all the different shooting phases, those shots will always have the same effect, no matter which kind of face is it being shooted at. Now it's also important to keep in mind that every single shot that he will shoot will have a debuff. There isn't a single shot in the void that does not have a debuff, so make sure to pay attention to that as well. Here are all the shots that he will be shooting. You can take a look at them. If you need to, pause the video for a moment, check them out, and then let's go next. Now, out of the 22 faces, I'll be telling you about a few certain faces that you should keep your eye out on at all times. For example, the 2 stacked shots. There is 2 kinds of them. One of them is a combination of slow shots and quiet shots, which is the really deadly one. And the other one is a combination of arrows and exposed shots. Now, we call them by stacked shots because eventually, especially at the right side of the platform, the left side of the platform, those shots will stack up on top of each other and will catch you off guard if you're not careful. So keep an eye out for those 2 at all times. Next on the dangerous faces list is the machine gun shots. Now in this phase, he's gonna move slowly for a bit, shoot a bunch of shots, one to his left, one to his right, and one in front of him, and that will depend on who is the closest person to him. He's gonna shoot out a barrage of those shots that will darkness you, and then he will shoot out 3 big shotgun. Now by any means, you do not want to stay close to the void, because he can easily rip your character off in a matter of seconds. Now, especially when you're crossing, make sure to not cross during this phase and the 2 stacked shots phase. Next on the dangerous list, we have 2 more phases that are not as dangerous as the 3 ones that we've spoken about before, but they can still be quite deadly if you're not careful of, which is the exposed shotgun and the paralyzed shotgun. Now, as long as you maintain a decent amount of distance and you use micro dodge a bit, both of them are really easy to dodge. Just make sure you're careful of them whenever you're crossing through a river. Now that we've spoken about the ways he can shoot and his shots, let's talk about his actual phases now. Now at the beginning when he starts rotating, everything is going to be normal and he's just going to be shooting. Once he reaches 85%, which is going to be his first threshold, he's going to start spawning minions as mini boys from the 4 corners of the room, and he's gonna spawn some every now and then on him, which is a good time to talk about the minions themselves. Now, there are 3 kinds of minions in the void: the mini boys, the medium boys, and the big boys. Now, the mini boy has 2 kinds of shots. One of them will be a single shot towards you that will curse you, and the second will be a pet stasis, but the pet stasis shots have 0.5 range, so the only way they will hit you is if they stand on you, they're gonna pet stasis you, which isn't the biggest deal in the world, but it's better to not get pet stasis. Now, here's a special thing about these minions. If you leave them hanging around for too long, they're gonna start blinking red, and after a few times they blink, they're gonna become bigger. So mini boys, after a while, will become into medium boys, which also turns into big boys if left alone for too long. Now, the medium boys, just like the mini boys, will also pet stasis anyone who stands on them. But these medium boys will shoot 3-shot shotgun. Now, the thing about the shotgun themselves is that it's not that they do way too much damage, but the problem is they curse you, which is going to be extremely dangerous in the void because every shot in the void does a massive amount of damage. So make sure you try to dodge their shots as much as you can. But these minions are all paralyzable and stunnable as well. So if you have electric on your pet, you can always rotate around them and paralyze them like that, and they won't be able to hit you. Or if you're a knight or somebody who has knight who's close to you, you can keep it stunned and make sure you take care of it. Now, knowing when to take care of minions is extremely important in runs. Now, usually when you're doing it with the raid leader will always let you know when you should take care of the minions. Although if he never tells you, keep 2 things in mind. If you see medium boys, always ignore the boss and focus on the medium boys first. Or if you don't have anything to do and you're standing on the platform doing nothing, make sure you run around, see if there's any minions to kill, and make sure you take care of them. If the medium boys are left alone for too long and become big boys, at that time they become dangerous, because even if they're not at your rendering space, they're gonna still follow you through the whole void. So even if there are different platforms that has nobody on them, they're gonna come to your platform and start shooting. Now, those big boys will do a lot of damage, and they will also curse you for 3 seconds. So same as the medium boys, make sure you either rotate around them or you stun them, but if you see one, that is your number one priority over anything else, to make sure to take care of those big boys first. Now, once you reach 70% of his HP, after you keep on DPSing him after his threshold, he's gonna speak again, which means he's at the next phase. At that phase, he's gonna split the platform into 2, leaving the right side platform and the left side platform. Now, at this time, it's important that each platform has a certain amount of people on it, so that they can take care of the minions at all times, because the minions are gonna continue to spawn all the time as well. From here on, you might start seeing something new from the void, which is going to the middle. Now, in total, the void splits the platforms 2 times. One time it's gonna leave right side and the left side. The second time it's gonna turn the platforms into 4 corners. Now, when he turns the platform into 2 platforms or 4 platforms, each time he goes to the river ends or the river beginnings, let's say, he has a chance of going to the middle, which he basically consumes himself with the void, and then he's gonna recreate himself at the middle of the platform. And he will also become armored, which basically means his armor is gonna be 1.5 times more than usual, which will result in 90 defense when he is at the middle, which is a massive amount, by the way. Now, at the first split, which is the right and left platform, he can only do 2 types of attacks when he goes to the middle, which is either the big fidgets or the Star Wars. Now, there's also one more thing to note, is that if he goes to the middle twice before he does the 4 split, he cannot do the same attack again. So for example, if the first time he goes to the middle and he does the Star Wars, the second time it has to be the big fidgets, which is why it's really important to know that, because it can give you a massive opportunity to dish in a lot of damage. Now let's talk about the 2 phases themselves. So first off, we have the Star Wars, which he shoots a number of shots around him with a very high speed, and that can do a lot of damage, and it will also silence you. So make sure you try to dodge them as well. Now, if you're a melee and you don't feel confident, it's completely fine if you don't want to push into DPS in that phase, because it can be extremely dangerous. However, if you're ranged, you should be easily able to DPS on this phase, as long as you can use your fingers and your WAS and D to dodge the shots. Now, the second phase is the big fidgets that he can do. Now, this one is known to be the best phase that he can do whenever he goes to the middle, because although he will be shooting a lot of massive shots that will do a massive amount of damage as well, which, by the way, each shot does 425 damage, they have a safe spot that he can even reach with a tiered sword. So every single person in the run will be able to DPS it 100% safely if they know where they are standing. Now, one more tip from me to you is that whenever he enters to the middle, whichever side he entered from, he's gonna exit from the opposite side. So if he entered the middle from the right side, he's gonna come out from the left side. If he entered from the bottom side, he's gonna come out at the top side, and he's always gonna continue his normal rotation, which is clockwise. So knowing this information, it can be extremely helpful for you to always be ready for the void when it comes out to dish out extra damage. Besides that, the void himself will continue to rotate around the room and continue spawning minions as well and doing his normal shots until you DPS him to 55% HP. Once you DPS him to 55% HP, he's gonna say something again, which means you push him to another phase. And in this one, it's gonna stay exactly the same as previous one, but he's gonna be a tiny little bit faster. So keep an eye out for that. And now if you continue DPSing him and push him to 40% HP, he's gonna say something that will indicate also that he is entered another phase. And you will also notice it because it's at this phase where he it slices the platforms to 4 slices, being top right, top left, bottom right, and bottom left as well. Now, you want to make sure that each platform has at least a balanced amount of number of players on them so they can take care of the minions, because if a platform gets too many minions that cannot be dealt with, it's going to be a problem, because those minions are going to kill or make all the people on the nexus on the other platforms as well. So make sure you don't let your guard down. Now, in this phase, he will add 2 more shot types to his arsenal whenever he goes to the middle. So he has the chance to pick out from one of those 4 that he has. Either the big fidget or the lasers that we've talked about before, the Star Wars, or the 2 new ones that he will get, which is the first, the blueberries, which is basically gonna shoot out a multiple tentacle shots of blueberry shots that are gonna rotate clockwise, but you can easily dodge between them. But be careful so you don't end up eating too many shots, because they also do a lot of damage. The next phase that he can do is the small fidgets. He basically shoots out a circle of small fidgets all around him, which are gonna hit stasis. Now, this phase is extremely good for DPSing if you have a good DPS or if you have a mystic in the run, because the dangerous part about this phase is that he's gonna spawn 4 big boys one after another. First, he's gonna shoot out the big boy to bottom right, then to bottom left, then to top left, then to top right, accordingly every single time. So knowing that, you can make the most out of it. If you're a mystic, make sure you stasis the big boys at the beginning of that phase so people can push in for the boss and push in as much as damage as they can. Otherwise, make sure you take care of the minions as soon as they spawn on your platform. Now, once you continue DPSing the void entity up to 25%, he's gonna start speaking again, and in this phase, it's gonna be his last phase, which is gonna be time-based, which is gonna be the Sonic Wave, which is basically known for that name because he becomes extremely fast when he's rotating. So make sure when you're damaging him, you always lead your shots ahead of him. Now, you wanna keep your eye out all the time for the shots, because since he's gonna be rotating faster, the shots are gonna come faster than usual. But besides that, it's gonna stay the same. And once you push him to 10% HP, he's gonna say all now ends, which indicates all of his time-based phases are now over and you can rest assured. After that, the platforms will not shrink anymore at all, and you can take as much time as you want to finish off the rest of the phases. Now, here is one very important tip that you need, or you should know, let's say, which is counter-rotating. The void always rotates clockwise, so if he ends up being too fast for you to rotate with him, or if you end up getting paralyzed or slowed, you don't have to stay on your platform. You can always rotate counterclockwise to the platform before you and wait for the void entity there. Now, this tip is extremely important because it can help with the DPS of the run immensely if a good number of people does it. But remember, do not counter-rotate if there are minions to be taken care of on your platform first. Remember, minions first. Now, once this phase is over, he's gonna slowly rotate a little bit while he's invulnerable, and he's not gonna be shooting, and then he's gonna go back to the middle of the platforms. Now, in here, he's gonna be invulnerable the whole time, spawning 2 waves of big boys to each platform at the same time. Now, while he's doing that, he will also be shooting different waves of shots every now and then. So make sure you don't fall asleep, or it can be an easy death if you get lined up by his shots. It's going to be the same kinds of shots that he was doing before when he is going to the middle. So, besides the small fidgets. After you kill the 2 waves of the the big boys, or after he shoots them out, he's gonna split himself into 4 different copies of himself. Now, those 4 copies, each of them will come out from one of the river ends, one being at the top, right, bottom, and the left side, which each platform has to take care of their own copy as soon as it comes. Now, few things that you need to know about this phase is that the copies themselves only have 3 kinds of shots in this phase, which is either the 3 shotgun of the big fidgets, the 3 shotgun of the Star Wars, or a big shotgun of the blueberries. So make sure you don't get lined up during this phase. Now, believe it or not, the safest spot that you can be for this phase is near the edge of your platform to the outside. Now, you want to stay on your platform in this phase all the time and DPS whichever copy comes to your platform. Now, there will be one more thing about this phase, which is minions. Now, there won't be any small minions or mini minions, let's say, but as soon as he starts rotating with the 4 copies, he's gonna spawn 4 medium boys on each platform, the same spot as he has been spawning the big boys before. Now you want to make sure you take care of those first, because he will also spawn 1 big boy from the middle as well. Now there's a time for both of those. From the beginning of when a medium boy comes out, every 20 seconds, he's gonna shoot out another wave of medium boys. So you want to kill the medium boy as soon as you can. For the big boys, it's gonna be the same, but only that the big boys are gonna start spawning 10 seconds after the phase starts. So you can look at it this way. From the beginning of the phase, the medium boys will spawn on the 4 corners. 10 seconds after the medium boys spawn, a big boy spawn from the middle, 1 big boy only. So usually a platform with a knight can drag to their platform and take care of it with a group. So 10 seconds after the first medium boy spawns, a big boy spawns from the middle. 10 seconds after the big boy spawns from the middle, a medium boys will spawn on all 4 platforms again. And so on until you kill all 4 of the copies. Now whenever you kill a copy, it's gonna type something in the chat to indicate that that copy is dead. And whenever the copy comes to you, you can see that it's dead by him having invulnerability on him, which means he cannot be DPS anymore. And by the way, they die once their HP reaches 50%. Now after you kill all the 4 copies, the 4 copies are gonna stop moving for a bit, and the original void, which is not a copy anymore, is gonna spawn from the middle again. Now this is gonna be the final phase of the fight. After a while, his copies are gonna start rotating again, shooting the same kinds of shots they were shooting before, but the void himself will shoot 12 big shotguns. The first 3 shotguns that he's gonna shoot will be circular, so it's gonna go to every platform, and the remaining of the 9 shotguns will shoot towards the closest player he is close to, which each of those shotguns contain 4 shots. Now, he's gonna be spawning minions 2 times during this wave. At the beginning, right before he shoots, he's gonna spawn a big boy and he's gonna shoot it at the closest player to him. And after he reaches 6 shots, he's gonna spawn the second big boy. So usually, if you're a mystic, you wanna keep your stasis until all the 12 shotguns are over, and then you stasis, and then everybody pushes in and finishes off the void. Now majority of the time you finish off the void right with 112 shotgun, and in case if you didn't have enough DPS or you couldn't push in, he's gonna repeat that process over and over and over until you can kill him. So rest assured, once you deal enough damage to him, he's gonna turn himself into Esben, he's gonna turn himself into the Bee Queen, into the Forgotten King, into NPC, into the Cultist Hideout mobs, which indicates that the void is dead. And after he transforms into all 5 of those, he's gonna become a very small flame that you can kill, which is basically equivalent to the treasure chest of the dungeon. Once you kill it, congratulations. The void is over, you completed the dungeon. And after that, you can exit the run without any worry on your shoulders. Now that we've talked about how to get through Lost Halls, let's talk about what can you get through Lost Halls. First off, I'll be talking about the fame and how much you can get it, because this dungeon gives a massive amount of XP. For example, each leader of each room will give 4,000 base XP. That's without any additive, so that's excluding your gear XP, that is excluding your character exaltation XP boost, just the base XP alone, which is, by the way, 2 precise fame. And now that can obviously be multiplied by your XP bonus. The minions of the leaders, however, each give 195 base XP, which is quite a lot. So to say it in short, if you go from spawn to MBD without hitting a pot room, you can get around 40 average fame per run just from clearing the mobs themselves. Then there's Spooky Boy that gives 10,000 XP, which is equivalent to like 5 fame. Then we have MBD that gives 1 fame. And then there is NBC and Void, one of the two main sources of the fame in the dungeon, which each of those two bosses give 80,000 XP, or let's say 40 fame, which is base fame, which obviously can be increased by XP bonus, so it's extremely good for that side. And then we have the Agonized Titan that also gives 5 fame, just like the Spooky Boy, aka 10,000 XP. And then inside the Cultist Hideout is another wave of fame. For example, each follower, aka minion, will give 500 XP, which by the way, 4 minions equals 1 fame. That's without any XP bonus. Then we have the 5 leaders of the cult. The 4 of them, when they get consumed, each of them gives around 5 fame per one. And Malus himself will give 30 fame, which is equivalent to 60,000 XP when he dies. As for the demons that they spawn, Moloch, which is the first demon, will give 15,000 XP, which is basically 7 fame and half. As for the three-headed demon itself doesn't give any XP, but once they split, each of them, if I am not mistaken, each of them will give you 6,666 base XP, which is kinda nice Easter there that a lot of people don't know. I'm not 100% sure about this info, and it's not really confirmed on Realm Eye, but hey, the more you know. And then let's talk about the loot that you can get. So we're gonna start off with the potions. MBD, Agonized Titan, and the pot rooms, the pots in the pot room, all of them will have the chance to give you rainbow pots, except with an exception of life and mana. Life and mana doesn't drop from those 3. Now, as an additive, the pots in the pot room will have a chance of giving you either a tincture or an effusion as well, whether it be a dexterity one, a defense one, a mana one, or a life one. One of those 4. Now, the Agonized Titan and the MBD is always guaranteed to give you 1 pot, and they will only give 1 pot, not more. So keep that in mind. But the pots are not guaranteed, however, so that's an extra information for you to know. And MBC will also have a guaranteed chance of dropping at least a defense and an attack potion as well. The Void and the Cultist and the MBC are the 3 bosses that drop life and mana, but none of them are guaranteed drop for those, at least not for everyone. It will drop at least for 1 player, but not for everyone, which honestly doesn't make sense because this is currently the 2nd hardest dungeon in the game which doesn't have guaranteed loot for Void and Cult, which is kinda questionable, but hey, who am I to argue about it? And there is also a small chance of getting the helmet ruin from either the MBC, the Void, or the Malice from the Cultist. And now, as of current time, there's only one ST set that drops in the Lost Hall itself, which is the Lost Golem set. Each part of this set, however, drops from different locations. For example, the ring, aka the cuffs, and the armor, aka the garment, will be dropping from golem rooms, with the big boy dropping the garment and the angry boss dropping the cuffs. However, the brain, which is the ability to prism, will be dropping from Marble Defender, and the dagger will be dropping from the Agonized Titan. Now, it's a pretty low chance of dropping from MBD and Agonized Titan, but it's not impossible to get. And as for tiered equipment, there will be tier 14 armors and tier 13 weapons. The tier 14 armors will drop from MBC and from the Void. The tier 13 weapons, however, will only drop from the Void himself. There is also tier 6 rings that are droppable, but those only drop from the cult. But besides that, there is really no more tiered equipment that can drop from the dungeon. And last but not least, we have the whites. Now there is 3 sets of whites for the classes, and 1 extra ring, which is the Omni ring. The whole set of the Necromancer will drop from Malice once it dies from the cult. The whole Marble Colossus set of Paladin, which is obvious, will also drop from the Marble Colossus himself. And the Void Archer set will drop from Void himself as well. And then there is the Ring of the Omnipotence that also drops from the void, but it is considered to be the rarest white between them all, which is a very nice ring, by the way. And as of right now, there is only 3 blueprints that will drop, which is the Breastplate blueprint, the Potato blueprint, and the Ring of the Omnipotence blueprint. Here are a few tips and tricks that will hopefully help you run through the dungeon easier than normal. First of all, I would like to tell you about screen rotation and making the screen not being centered on the player. This will give you a massive window of vision in front of you, and that's easily flexible with the rotation, as you can see in this. That can really help in a massive amount of scenarios. Next on the option list, we have the opacity. Now this one is very important. It basically makes every other player transparent so that you can see every shot that comes and every mob that comes as well. Now you can toggle it to 50% only from the game, but if you want to toggle it even lower, I will leave a link to a Reddit post in the comment section that you can follow so that you can turn it down even lower if you would like to. Third of it is turning off all the shots and projectiles from your allied player. This will also increase your vision and your visibility by a lot more. Next on the tips is that make sure you always stay with the group, which basically means do not peek any splits. Because in Lost Halls, especially for crusades and spookies, which are extremely easily draggable, it can be very dangerous for the group and for the run if you peek splits. So make sure you never peek splits at all. Even if it's just a Mario, it can really make an impact if nobody keeps an eye out for it. Next on the tips list is that make the most out of micro dodging as much as you can. No matter where you are, if you see a lot of mobs incoming or if you see a lot of shots incoming, don't panic, look at the shots, look at where they're coming from, and dodge accordingly to that. If you think you're in a situation that you cannot dodge, don't hesitate next to saying, because it's always better than losing your character, and you can always join another run and attempt to do the Lost Hall again. Next, in the Lost Hall itself, we have multiple versions of rooms. Not all of them are plain simple. Some of them have a black hole in it, some of them have ice in it, some of them have pure evil on it. So make sure you make your movements as well according to the room's adjustment. Now, while you're doing halls, you might as well notice 2 things. There is also eyes and pillars in the dungeon. Now, each of them have a different purpose. The eyes, that look like an M seal, have different colors. All of them indicate the kind of buff or debuff that they will do. Now, for the eyes themselves, they will either inflict a buff on you or a debuff on you. It's not gonna affect the enemy at all. Now, there is one way you can tell if the tower is gonna buff you or debuff you. Under the tower, if you have master effects on, if it has green textures going up, that means it's gonna be a buff. And depending on the tower, that buff differs. And if it has red projectiles on it, like red small particles on it, that means that tower is gonna debuff you, so try to not stay close to it at all. As for the pillars, there is also different colors of them and different kinds of them. If the pillar is bright white, that means that pillar is on your side and it'll only attack enemies, not you. However, if the pillar looks like a grayish pillar that's a little bit faded, that means it's gonna shoot towards you, and the debuff will be according to the color of the pillar, which by now you should know what color does what. And last but not least, don't AFK in Lost Halls, because enemies in this dungeon move quite often from a room to a room, so that most of the time when you AFK, there's a very good chance that a mob will come to you and it'll probably kill you if you don't come back in time. So avoid AFKing. If you need to do something urgently, leave the run, or do it before the run starts, not during the run. Thank you very much for watching this video, guys. I hope you learned something from it, and hopefully it can make your Lost Hall experience feel smoother and better as well. And hopefully we will see each other in the Lost Halls. Until then, See ya.